And other current issues. With us today is Gregory Jaczko, former chairman of the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, Torgen Johnson, citizens representative of San Diego Forum that was instrumental in closing down a nuclear generating station in San Diego, and the Citizens Commission on Nuclear Energy, CCNE, which invited both of these gentlemen here to speak about how citizens could become more active in determining nuclear energy policy and the state of nuclear energy in Japan. We have limited time since two of our guests have to get on an airplane at 11. So without further ado, if you want to know more about this, you all have the handout here. First speaking is Mr. Gregory Jaczko, who was the former chairman of the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, followed by Torgen Johnson, and then followed by Tetsuro Tsutsui, and then we will take questions and answers. Mr. Jaczko, please go ahead.
Thank you. Well, thanks, Jake. It is a real pleasure to be here to address you this morning. I've had an opportunity over the last several days to visit with a number of different people here in Japan and hear about their concerns and issues dealing with nuclear power in the aftermath of the Fukushima Daiichi accident. One of the things that has become very clear to me and became clear to me after the accident began is that these kinds of nuclear accidents that have really economy-wide impact are simply unacceptable in Japanese society, in American society, and I think really all over the world. So it gives us an opportunity to take a step back and figure out how we go forward and how we ultimately move forward in a way that eliminates the possibility of these kinds of accidents. And one of the keys to that certainly is the active involvement and engagement of the public. Decisions about nuclear technology are often controversial. They are often very difficult, involving sometimes science that has limited consensus among technical experts. And so it's incumbent to fully engage the public and be active on the part of the government, on the part of the utilities, on the part of the citizens, to be active participants in this endeavor. We know what the impact of the Fukushima Daiichi accident was. It's 160,000 people evacuated from their homes, most of them still to this day. It's a significant land contamination event, and it's an event that, at a minimum, estimates have shown will impact the Japanese economy on the order of about 500 billion US dollars, right? I think if I do my math right, that's 50 trillion yen. And it's an accident that will leave a legacy of cleanup and decontamination and decommissioning that will last for decades. Now, there has been a lot of interest lately, internationally certainly, and I've seen that in the United States, about the efforts to deal with water contamination at the site, a combination of problems from tanks that are storing contaminated water and groundwater migration through the site. All of these issues are extremely significant, but they are just the beginning of the work that will need to be done. Over the next several months, there will be activities related to removing fuel from the Unit 4 spent fuel pool. This is also a very significant activity from a safety perspective. So there's a lot of activity and there's a lot of work to be done, and much of that is extremely safety significant. So that's why it's so important to have the public fully engaged. There will invariably be setbacks in this work, and it's important to have a good dialogue and a good debate, not only to be able to communicate these setbacks as they occur, but ultimately to be able to solicit and get the best advice and recommendations about how to move forward with many of these issues. Every time I come to Japan, I'm amazed by the spirit and the creativity and the hard work and the ethic of hard work of the Japanese people. And I think it's extremely important to utilize all the resources that exist in Japan to work on solving these challenges, because they are ultimately unprecedented. The accident at Fukushima Daiichi has left a legacy of contamination that is very different from any other radiological disaster that has happened in the world. And ultimately, we have to change the mindset about people believing that accidents can't happen. Before the accident, too many people believed in that mindset. And that's part of the challenge and part of the important need to change as we go forward. Fundamentally, as I've looked at this accident and as I talk to people in communities that surround nuclear power plants in the United States, in Japan, it's become clear to me that we need to think about safety in a whole new way. We need to think about nuclear technology being used in a way that it cannot lead to evacuations. It cannot lead to land contamination events. This is something that we wouldn't accept in any other kind of technology. And even though these events are anticipated and expected to be extremely rare, they still can happen, and they did happen at Fukushima Daiichi. So as we go forward and we think about nuclear technology and the use of nuclear technology, it's time to completely remove the possibility of severe accidents. That means a whole new way of looking and thinking about nuclear technology, and it may mean rethinking the reactors that are currently in operation today. So as I've met with people and attended public meetings over the last several days, I've challenged the people that have come before me to be active participants, to be actively engaged in the work that is going to be needed to be done in Japan to address the issues with Fukushima Daiichi, to address the very difficult decisions about restarting nuclear power plants in this country. So I'm really thrilled to be here with Torgen Johnson, who is from Southern California, and I met him when I was working as the chairman of the NRC because of the work that he was doing to organize people in his community and to bring facts to their attention that would help them be informed participants in the debate and discussion about the power plant in his community. And I'm especially pleased to be here with Dr. Tsutsui, who has a tremendous background and has ideas and thoughts about how to address and tackle the challenges of Fukushima Daiichi. And these are very, very difficult challenges. And I think if there's any lasting message that I could leave, it's that to tackle these challenges, the best and brightest minds from Japan, and if necessary from the rest of the world, will need to be brought to bear to come up with solutions. And I think it's very difficult to say that there's a right answer. There will be difficult choices, and there will ultimately be sacrifices and choices that'll have to be made. So I appreciate the opportunity to address all of you, and I'd be happy to answer questions when we get to there. Thank you.
Next is Mr. Johnson.
Hello. Thank you for this opportunity to address you in a poetic way. This trip is a full circle. It started with us watching from California the March 2011 disaster unfolding on television and wondering what this meant for Japan. And 3 weeks after the first explosions, we were detecting radiation in the milk we were feeding our children in our house in San Diego, that plume had reached the West Coast and was uptaken through bioaccumulation in the dairy industry, 5,500 miles downwind. I think at that point, my views on nuclear power had shifted from being very supportive of the technology to being more wary and wanting to know more about what these disasters mean to society. So in the process of observing and learning about the Fukushima disasters, it was unfolding. We turned when I say we, it was a number of community groups from San Clemente, California, and up through Orange County, all the way up into Los Angeles County, down through San Diego County. It was a number of people. It was a loose coalition of concerned citizens and professionals, include doctors, attorneys, medical experts, people in elected official positions. All of us were starting to tune into this issue at Fukushima, and then redirected our attentions at the San Onofre nuclear generating station, which happens to be about 30 miles upwind of our house. And so over the course of 2.5 years, we organized the public and elected officials from local level to state level, all the way up into the federal level, to take note of the public's position on the risks and benefits of nuclear power, that the public was growing wary as we were watching things spiral out of control at Fukushima. And a number of us in these coalitions based out of San Clemente eventually put together a series of city council meetings and started to engage our elected officials. And what we're sharing now in Japan is that technique of inclusion, because the public in California included a number of specialists. Some of the people that were part of our group included the man that designed the containment structures, the chief engineer, that designed the containment structures at San Onofre. We had people inside the power plant speaking to us. We had a number of experts that became involved in this broader public discussion. So it culminated with an event on June 4th, which was precipitated earlier by a long and drawn-out, very complex legal battle that Friends of the Earth, U.S., was waging in Washington against Southern California Edison, the owner of the San Onofre Nuclear Generating Station. And as the lawsuit was unfolding, we decided at the public level to organize a conference. We invited former Prime Minister Naoto Kan and former chairman of the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, Dr. Jaczko, and independent nuclear expert Arnie Gunderson, and past NRC Commissioner Peter Bradford, to join the public and open up a public dialogue about the risks and benefits of San Onofre. And it was a very successful conference. I know there were a number of issues that led to the closure of San Onofre, but one of those forces was the public getting involved in the decision-making process and putting pressure on regulators, local officials, state and federal officials, to take the public's concerns and their concerns for their safety at heart, and really acknowledge that the public is the key stakeholder in these disasters. The public, especially right around the power plant, are the first victims. They're the first ones to lose everything. For many people, losing their homes, that equates to personal financial ruin. And we started to raise these discussions in these meetings that we were having. So the outcome after that conference was a decision by Southern California Edison 3 days after our conference to close the facility for good and decommission it. The Japanese, who we've been in close contact with, asked us to come to Japan and talk to them about what we did and how we organized the public. It was a very professional and symbiotic kind of relationship that we had with our elected officials, and I think the Japanese public wants to do the same thing here now. They want to have a clearer voice. I think it's a healthy thing in planning. That's the approach that we take in progressive planning, is you take all stakeholders in the broadest sense and a wide range of disciplines and bring them to the table and let them discuss all these key issues. For instance, the release of 1,000 large tanks of highly radioactive water into northeastern Japan's fisheries. I think the fishing industry needs to be at the table in that discussion. That's a huge issue. I know it'll eventually wind up on my dinner plate in San Diego. That's why we're here.
Thank you very much. These two gentlemen were brought here by the CSO, the Citizen Nuclear Information Center, Gensuikin, and CCNE, the Citizens Commission on Nuclear Energy. Mr. Tetsuro Tsutsui, who is the Nuclear Regulation Subcommittee representative here, will speak briefly on the proposal that they are making to the Japanese government. And there will be also probably he will be doing it in English, and then after that we will take questions. Mr. Tsui-san.
Thank you very much. I would propose 3 points from engineering point of view. Number one, according to this paper, establishing a project-oriented task force organization. TEPCO is inappropriate organization for dealing with this exceptional situations. So we propose the formation of project-oriented task force organization to deal with the current situation. This task force would include expertise, seconded from engineering and construction companies, including experienced project works experts and engineers. The task force would be empowered with a broad range of activities, including planning, budget control, fieldwork management, etc. Number 2, underground wall to be built on hillside of tank area. Please this map. The current METI and TEPCO plan is to build a 1.4 kilometer long frozen wall around the reactor buildings to block underground water. However, the existing storage tank area upstream of the reactor buildings is already radioactively contaminated. Moreover, the frozen wall method is not yet technically proven and requires a long construction period before it can be in place. So we propose the construction of an underground wall using a different method and the installation of reliable storage tanks. The wall would be located upstream of the tank area. The tanks constructed would be 100,000 ton class reliable storage tanks with maximum total capacity of 800,000 tons. The advantage of building the wall upstream of tank area is that it opens up the possibilities of utilizing proven technology, the mobilization of many skilled operators of heavy equipment under less worker loads, and mobilization of many such heavy equipment simultaneously because of a large working space. Point 3, plans for removal of debris should be cancelled. The current METI and TEPCO roadmap states that the removal of debris will begin 8.5 years after the accident and be completed 20 to 25 years after the accident. We propose following alternative. The contaminated water problem should be resolved. Spent fuel in the spent fuel pools should be removed as planned. Then we propose that the water cooling of the damaged reactor cores should be continued until the decayed heat is reduced sufficiently for natural air circulation. Subsequently, the equipment and building areas selected for isolation should be covered with concrete. This proposed method can avoid many uncertain difficulties which would arise in the METI TEPCO plan, including plugging an uncertain number of cracks on the pressure containment vessels, the need to develop methods to break up the blocks of debris and remove the pieces of debris, the extensive radioactive dose to workers, the huge financial expenses. That's all. Thank you.
Before we take questions, Mr. Tsui-san, has this been submitted to the government yet, or are you planning to submit it in the next few days, this urgent request?
こちらの提案書というのはすでに日本政府の方に提出済みですか、それともこれから提出する予定ですか。
Tomorrow tomorrow we will submit to the Parliament members.
Okay. Well, this will be submitted to the Parliament members tomorrow, assumingly in Japanese and English. All right, now we're going to take questions. I would ask that you please not give speeches and just give questions. Go ahead. Please identify yourself when you ask the question.
Yes, hello. My name is Daniel Leusink. I'm a freelance correspondent with the Dutch financial daily, het Financiële Dagblad. I've been based in